Welcome to Your Daily Devotional with me, PMV. Today we finish Revelation chapter 18, and this marks the end of the second major division of the book of Revelation. When we finished chapters 1 through 3, which was the first major division, we covered the first half of the book of James. We took a little break from Revelation. Then we've been covering the second major division of Revelation, which is chapters 4 through 18. So after this, we'll take a short break from Revelation, cover the back half of James, then we'll come back and we'll finish the third major division of the book of Revelation, which is chapters 19 through 22. All right, so we're going to finish chapter 18 today. As we come to the end of chapter 18, I want to read verses 9 through 20 all together. It's a larger passage, and it's describing the economic collapse of Babylon. Then we'll talk about some specifics and how this applies to our lives. Okay, beginning at verse 9. The kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived luxuriously with her will weep and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance for fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city. For in 1 hour your judgment has come, and the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, for no one buys their merchandise anymore. Notice that. No one buys their merchandise anymore. Merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen and purple, silk and scarlet, every kind of citron wood, every kind of object of ivory, every kind of object of most precious wood, bronze, iron, and marble, and cinnamon, incense, fragrant oil and frankincense, wine and oil, fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and chariots, and bodies and souls of men. The fruit that your soul longed for has gone from you, and all the things which are rich and splendid have gone from you, and you shall find them no more at all. The merchants of these things who became rich by her will stand at a distance for fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour such great riches came to nothing. Every shipmaster, all who travel by ship, sailors, and as many as trade on the sea, stood at a distance and cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What is like this great city? And they threw dust on their heads and cried out, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city, in which all who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth. For in 1 hour she is made desolate. Rejoice over her, O heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her. Okay, we've already been looking at the destruction of Babylon in our previous times together, so I don't feel the need to hash out each verse in this section, but I do want to point out a few things from what I just read. In fact, 3 times in this passage, it refers to Babylon being overthrown in 1 hour. Now, this is a figure of speech referring to the suddenness of Babylon's fall. It's much like the concept of a day that we saw earlier. It doesn't matter, the point is, it doesn't matter how strong Babylon appears. When God's judgment comes, it will be swift and it will be complete. Second, the world weeps at the fall of Babylon. But if you notice, the world isn't really weeping because it cares about Babylon. The world is weeping because it's losing its wealth that was tied up in Babylon. All that the world trusted in is being destroyed. Their wealth comes to nothing. The riches they've trusted in now fail them. They weep because their God of wealth has been destroyed by the one true and living God. Third, the people of God are told to rejoice. Let's read verse 20 one more time. Rejoice over her, O heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her. Okay, heaven and the apostles and prophets are told to rejoice over her. But what's the deal with this? Is this God being mean? Not at all. The prophets and the apostles represent those who were martyred and who have suffered for their faith in God. So what does the end of verse 20 say? For God has avenged you on her. The people are told to rejoice because God's judgment has come. Now there is righteousness. The people are told to rejoice because their blood that was shed in his name has now been avenged. Babylon has fallen, and the people of God can finally rejoice in the defeat of the system of this world that has opposed God for thousands of years. That word avenged is interesting. It's not speaking of an unfair emotional outburst by God. It speaks of doing what is right, of bringing justice, what is just, to an unjust situation. It speaks of the righteousness of God that must be satisfied. God has avenged his saints, and he's doing what is good and right, and he is just in doing so. If you remember in Revelation chapter 13, those who did not receive the mark of the beast were what? They weren't allowed to buy or sell. The world imposed an economic punishment on those who remained faithful to God. Don't miss this. The world imposed an economic punishment on those who remained faithful to God. But now this same economic system that oppressed the people of God is being judged by God. Remember, God cares about the injustice that you suffer even more than you do. And God's justice will be perfect when he acts. There are many verses in Scripture that speak to this truth. I love the way that Psalm 37 verses 7 through 9 put it. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who brings wicked schemes to pass. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret, it only causes harm, for evildoers shall be cut off, and those who wait on the Lord. But those who wait on the Lord shall inherit the earth. God's very nature demands justice. We may not understand his timetable, but we are called to trust his nature. We can trust him. He cares for you. No suffering is wasted. God will see justice done. We are called to rest in him, to wait upon him, to let go. You can quit worrying and give yourself over to God's loving embrace, knowing he will do what is right. So let's finish our passage today. Verses 21 through 24 read, Then a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence the great city of Babylon shall be thrown down and shall not be found any more. The sound of harpists, musicians, flutists, and trumpeters shall not be heard in you any more. No craftsman of any craft shall be found in you any more, and the sound of a millstone shall not be heard in you any more. The light of a lamp shall not shine in you any more, and the voice of bridegroom and bride shall not be heard in you any more. For your merchants were the great men of the earth, for by your sorcery all the nations were deceived, and in her was found the blood of the prophets and saints, and of all who were slain on the earth. Okay, these verses speak of the finality of Babylon's fall. We all, I think, love a comeback story, don't you? I mean, how many movies are about a comeback? How many books have been written following the plot line of a comeback story? We love it. We love to see someone who falls make their way back. We love to see redemption. The whole Star Wars franchise is actually built on a comeback story. Episode 4 that was first released in 1977. Remember that? The title of the movie was Star Wars. The full title, Episode 4, A New Hope. A New Hope. In the Star Wars world, hope had been lost. It seemed like the evil empire had won. The rebellion had been all but crushed, but then Luke Skywalker entered the story. But while we love a comeback story, there will be no hope of a return for Babylon. When God decrees her end, her destruction will be swift, complete, and permanent. So to bring it to a close today, notice in Revelation 18:21 through 23, each verse has the phrase, and shall not be found or heard anymore. Well, In the near future, we'll see the return of Christ in Revelation 19. This will give us the fall of Babylon from a heavenly perspective. It will focus on Jesus and his victory that we get to share in and celebrate. Remember, the things of God are forever. The world, this world, is passing away. So how are you living for eternity now? How does your life demonstrate an eternal perspective? How does your life demonstrate a trust in the God who is bringing all things to his purposed end? Thank you for joining me today. For more information, you can go to pnvministries.org. As always, I hope you have a great day.